So we don't see it. We did not see it in juvenile justice. We don't see it here. Kevin Downey called me and asked me to see it. The it is Crosspoint's mission here. Somewhere close to 700,000 people are released from United States federal and state prisons each year. They are disproportionately minorities, they are poor, they have a high prevalence of low educational attainment, they have prior homelessness, and most have been unemployed for years. And upon release, they must obtain housing, they must find employment, they have to reintegrate into society. More than 70% of them suffer from chronic medical problems, from substance abuse, mental health problems, all of which exacerbates their plight. Now, while they are incarcerated, these maladies were addressed pretty much on a daily basis. But research has shown that in the 2 weeks following release, a former inmate is 12 times more likely to die than the average person. Now, the juvenile justice system in Travis County, here in San Antonio, and across our communities very often is tucked away from our view. And the stories that are revealed in the building, in those courtrooms, are rarely heard in our public discourse. And so it is with the lives of the formerly incarcerated. It is time for all of us to open our eyes to the plight of those in the shadows who need nothing more than our attention. Now, the question for me, because I'm not in this field, just as I was not in juvenile justice, how do we make a difference? How do you take these circumstances and go to public officials and community leaders and tell them to take a look and make things better?
I do want to, before we recognize our graduates, just talk about one program, and it's been brought up a couple of times. The Recovery Support Home was started June 1st a year ago, so we've had about 18 months. And this is in Monte Vista. This is the home for women who have completed addictions treatment but do not have the resources to live independently. So they, absent our program, they would be living in a park, in a car, or moving back with a potentially abusive or substance abusing spouse. So these folks, they really have a second chance. They're not criminal justice people, but they have a second chance. They come, they get to save some money, get a job, and we've placed 91% of the women that have come through there in the last 18 months, helped them find housing, have gone on to reunite with family members, and you will hear one person talk about that later. But it's a remarkable program, which I want to thank, first of all, Julie Wisdom Wild, her staff, the board of Alpha Home, for getting on board with this, because they're our collaborator, and there is no money to be made at this. This is a program that really is there just to fill a need in this community. I also want to thank my board, because that doesn't sound like a heck of a business plan when I went forward. I have no idea where the money's coming from, but it's important. But we've kept it open for 18 months. We now have enough money in the bank, I think, to take us through 2014. But without this partnership, this would never, ever have come off. So I want to thank my friends here from Alpha Home and the boards of both organizations for making this a reality. So thank you. So we're going to have Robert Harris go first with his brief remarks about his experience, and then as she makes her way back up here, you can be the second speaker. So, Robert?
Hello everybody. It feels kind of funny to be here. Just coming from the background that I came from, I've never really been in trouble growing up. You know, I was a football star in high school, and had a great mother. Just made bad choices in life, and through those bad choices, it actually turned out good, because look at all the people I get to meet and I get to know, but to be accepted back into society, especially with all the bad that I've done in my life. I can't take credit for the changes that I've made. I have wonderful people in my life. Mr. Downey is one, that's for sure. Crosspoint in itself, Miss Carol, Natalie, the rest of the staff. I learned something from them every day because I've never had to be professional in my life, never. I was always just who I was, and that was at all times. But I'm around people that actually teach me how to be professional, and I appreciate all that. But Mr. Brown, I don't know where Mr. Brown is. Mr. Brown, where you at? Okay, Mr. Brown is a TDAC counselor here at Crosspoint. And when people think of geniuses, they think of, Albert Einstein, people that made the tire or whatever, the circle. I think of Mr. Brown because he did something that no one has ever done, and that was figure me out. And I have never in my life been figured out, ever. But through Crosspoint, the bad choices that I made, it turned out to be a heck of an experience. I would never want to do that again. I did 8.5 years. I would never want to go back to prison again. But by going to prison, I got to meet Mr. Brown. And honestly, I really do think he saved my life. I do, because I had a 2-year plan. Mr. Brown used to always tell me, don't think your plan is going to work. There are mistakes, and I had 2 years to perfect my plan before I came home. So I used to always tell Mr. Brown, you don't know, I know what I'm doing, Mr. Brown, I got this. And he used to always give me angles that I never thought of, and that's what opened my eyes up. And I say, you know what, if he sees something good in me, and he's giving me all this good advice, he's coming to my room to talk to me, all these things, he sees something good in me. But I didn't know what it was. But when I figured it out, our last conversation, he let me know the world is at your hands. The choices that you made, that doesn't even matter. From here on is what's going to count. And from that's what I took. And I went out in the world, and I took all the illegal hustles that I had and put it in the professional world, and just started meeting wonderful people and started meeting more and more people. And now I just feel like without Crosspoint, I don't think this could have happened. I couldn't have met Miss Carol, which is another wonderful woman, again, y'all. But I couldn't have met these people. I couldn't have done the things that I do. When people tell me when you came and spoke, you changed a couple people's lives. If I changed one, I felt like I'd done something. So when I change lives, that's what I'm here for. That's what I've learned to go through, and to show the kids, to show other people. I guarantee you wasn't as bad as I was. And look where I'm at. If I could do it, I guarantee you could do it. And once again, I'd like to thank Crosspoint and all my co-workers, Ms. Carol, Chrysalis Ministries, and everybody. I appreciate y'all, and thank you.
Hello. It's truly an honor to be here, and I want to thank Mr. Downey for inviting me. I'll have a few minutes, so I'll share with you as much of my experience as I can. My name is Elizabeth Thomas. My date of sobriety is July 23rd, 2012, and for that I'm truly grateful. I entered in treatment on May 1st, 2012. When I arrived at the doors of Alpha Home, my life was completely unmanageable due to the choices I had made. I was suffering from a drug and alcohol addiction, homeless, had been physically abused, spiritually and emotionally sick, and in jeopardy of losing my children for good. I had tried by every means possible of gaining control and failed utterly. I was completely powerless. My only option was to get help, go to jail, or stay out here and die. And I could bear it no longer, not one more second of the hell that I was living. So when I got to Alpha, I was ready and willing to do anything they asked of me. While my stay there, I was introduced to a 12-step program, got educated about my addiction. They took us to meetings, taught us relapse prevention, anger management, parenting, and attended individual and trauma counseling. I also sought and obtained employment, learned time management, how to take accountability for my actions, how to be of service and sponsorship. But most importantly, I learned to grow into acceptance. Thankfully, all the tools that would prepare me for the road ahead. Thankfully, Prior House had just reopened, so I had somewhere to go once I left Alpha. I was discharged on July 7th and moved into Crosspoint. With my newfound freedom and my toolkit, I was ready to take the world on once again. I was there for about 10 days and moved out. I thought I could go back and revisit people, places, and things. Properly equipped, I was sure that I was able to handle anything that came my way. but experience tells us that if you go to the barber shop, you're gonna get a haircut. So I quickly realized what a huge mistake I had made. The same abusive, controlling, drug-infested environment was no longer an acceptable lifestyle for me. And only by the grace of God was I immediately able to get back to Crosspoint. I say that to say this. There's a reason for this process. The importance of this transition is a vital step in my recovery. It's like building an archway without a keystone. It's sure to collapse. And Crosspoint was that keystone. I needed the aftercare once I got out of treatment. I needed to stay in a sober living environment around other women who would hold me accountable and were working towards the same goals that I was. Crosspoint was more than just a place to live. It was a way to change the way that I was living. It gave me an opportunity to apply the skills and the knowledge that I had learned while in Alpha and put them into practice in my everyday living. Without the safe haven, I would never have made it out here, and for that I'm grateful. While there, I was able to continue on with my outpatient classes, counseling, and it was easily accessible to meetings and to my job. I continued working my 12 steps with my sponsor. I got regular visits with my children, and I was even able to be of service and participate in volunteer projects that Crosspoint made available. Projects like building the terrace at the Oblate School of Theology and the graffiti cleanup in District 1 at Lee High School. I enjoyed doing these things because it was a way for me to give back and to get out of myself. I celebrated 18 months of sobriety last week on January 23rd. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you to all the amazing staff at Crosspoint and Alpha Home for all of their hard work and keeping us on track and putting up with us, because I know it's challenging at times. And please know that you're greatly appreciated.